Hello everybody, my name is Luke Moore and this is Hot Mode, and today on Hot Mode we are coming to you with your Academy Gala fashion roast and review for 2024. Now if you don't know, people in the fashion world, or at least like the celebrity slash fashion world, are starting to say that the Academy Gala, which is obviously like the Academy for like the Oscars, the Academy. They're doing this Academy Gala every year, and it's become almost the West Coast Met Gala. And you'll see that there is a lot of fashion brands that are either creating custom looks for the event, or they are most definitely trying to dress as many people as they can. And so it's become a bit of a moment. So we have to talk about it because there was a lot of looks, things to look at. Without further ado, let's get into it. First up, we have Addison Rae, and she is wearing an older Alberta Ferretti look. I believe it's from like 2013, something around that time. And it's a sort of patchwork lace fitted gown. I will say, I do think that where it actually touches the body, so sort of the bodice, the straps, around the hips and the thigh area for the most part, I think it's rather lovely. I like the different shades of blue in the lace. I think where I'm a little bit blawed by it is where it becomes tiered, and so it creates this sort of asymmetrical tier. The asymmetrical thing doesn't even really throw me off. I just think that there's something maybe not as exciting about the little pieces of patchwork lace that don't take up all of those tiered chiffon elements, but rather just sort of are placed around them. I really do think that from the top of the knee up, it's lovely. I just think that the skirt section doesn't really help to put us over the finish line. Next up, we have Amelia Dimoldenberg, and she is wearing Harris Reed. This, I think, is lovely. Here's the thing. Is it a little bit simple? It's a black fitted gown with a long train. Sure. But I do think that the choice of fabric, the velvet, is really lovely. I think that velvet, honestly, is a pretty great and oftentimes underutilized fabric, because what it does is it sucks in all of the light, because that's what we also have to think about with a lot of these images and photos. The light really does sort of get captured in the fabric. There's nothing that you can see. There's no wrinkle, there's no crease, there's no nothing. And it's the same thing for the most part with any sort of dark velvets, I find, like a dark navy blue, a dark gray, things like that. It really just does get captured in there. And so it really just shows off the silhouette beautifully. The waist is lovely, the hips beautiful. I also like the sort of straps that hang down. I think it adds a nice sort of element that's not just the gown being fitted. I think the train is lovely. I think it's nice. Next up, we have Amy Adams. Now, she's wearing Prabal Gurung. Here's my thing. I've been seeing a lot of Amy Adams lately, and I've been liking a lot of what I see. I just don't think that this dress in particular makes me feel that way. Here's the thing. We can see that obviously the bodice area, the bust, the waist is very sort of rigid and structured. But when we get to sort of the top of the hip, it becomes a draped element. So it's not as fitted, not as structured. You have this fabric flower there. And then the skirt becomes a little bit loosey-goosey, but not flowing, not liquidy. It's just sort of a looser drape of the same fabric, which normally I think I would appreciate. At least we use the same fabric, but something about it just feels like it doesn't fit. And I know that it was intentional, but it feels unintentional, and so that's not great. So I just feel like the bodice doesn't really do all that much, and then the skirt really doesn't help to emphasize the bodice in any way. It's doubly not doing all that much, and it just kind of falls flat. Next up, we have Anna Sawai, and she is wearing Louis Vuitton. Now, listen, I love the balloon hem, and we're going to see a couple of these balloony sort of draped styles throughout all the LV looks, but I think the skirt is cool. Listen, you don't have to like it. If it's not your thing, you don't ever want to wear a balloon hem, you don't ever want to look at a balloon hem, pop the balloon, fine, do your thing. Suck the helium out, talk like a chipmunk, do it. I will say, I do think that the silhouette is rather lovely. I like the idea of pairing a balloon hem with a crop top. I just think where we're lost is the sleeve. I get wanting to have like a puff sleeve. I get the idea of sort of creating a bit of volume, a bit of exaggeration there. I just wish that it was done on both sides, because no matter how you look at it, it just feels weird to look at a gathered crop top with only one puffed leg of lamb shoulder. Like a mutton sleeve should be on both sides. Mutton for you, but it's not as fair when it's just mutton for you, no mutton for you. You see what I'm saying? Next up, we have Ariana Grande, who's wearing vintage Balmain. Now, I think this is actually a lovely silhouette on her. I do think the polka dots sort of capture that real sort of 50s, 60s Balmain, and also just the decades themselves. Codes of both the decade and also of the House of Balmain. I know Pierre Balmain loved a good polka dot. So it makes sense. I think it works. I also think that the bow in the center is rather lovely at the bust line. I guess the thing that maybe can throw people off is the sheer overlay over the sort of creamy or white silk. Although I think that only the sheer overlay is at the bust and it's not at the bottom. I think that that's just like a piece of light black satin. So, and then on top of it, when you look at the waist sort of ribbon, that's a darker black than the hem and also then the bust. I could see where it doesn't all align all that much. I thought that the hem was actually all a sheer piece, and I like that continuity between both. I do wish that that had been the case. Although, as much as I would love to exhume Pierre Balmain and have him go back 60 or 70 years and like remake it, not gonna happen. I love the polka dots. I think the silhouette really truly is great on her. I just wish there was a bit more conversation between a few of the detail pieces. Next up, we have Aubrey Plaza in Miu Miu. I don't get it. Listen, as much as I want to get it, and I really enjoy Miu Miu, I think it's one of the great brands currently working. I just think the sheer style with the embellishment of this sort of like floral, coppery, rose gold, that could be fine. That could be cool. I don't really see it like lining up with the Miu Miu world currently, but okay, whatever. We could deal. I do think that the big pink bows that are like smushed and flattened right on the waist is the weird part. Can get a Mucha Prada thought process and like I can try to understand it and I can try to get there, but this one I don't see it. Like I do see it and I'm sure we can go back and we can find a reference for it and I love that, but at the same time I'm not doing that. I just don't think that the look stands on its own, and I do think that Aubrey Plaza has looked pretty good recently. I've been enjoying some of her moments. I just don't think that this does it. It just is too weird. It's too out there. It's too complex and too many elements, yet so few elements working together. And it's a cacophony of not good taste. And so it's just, it's not landing and delivering. I don't know if it's also that like the pose is not there. Maybe there were other photographs that could have sold us a little bit more on it, but like the straight arms like this, it's not helping. So yeah, this is weird. No. Next up we have Ava DuVernay. She's wearing custom Louis Vuitton. I think this is beautiful. I love the actual dress. It just fits her. It's red, it's flowy, languid, not too loosey-goosey, not too liquidy, just the right amount. And then this draped asymmetrical cape thing is fantastic. You have this very sort of 80s football linebacker shoulder pad situation going on. And normally, I think it's really hard to pull that off. But I think that the way that the cape is draped really does sort of give that 80s shoulder the ability to not feel so outrageous and so exaggerated. It really does feel like she's almost just wearing a crazily draped cape and her shoulders just naturally have formed like that. I will also say, I think something about this idea of just like a simple, easy drape, it feels almost like, I don't want to say, there aren't many great emperors, I think, of like Roman times, but it does feel almost very sort of Roman, Caesar, Augustus, or I don't want to say Nero because I think he's a bad one, but there's a few Roman emperors I would say, if they had some nice pictures draped like that, I could respect the game. So I think that there's just something dynamic about the red, about the drape, about the silhouette, about the fact that the dress does not try to fight it. It just lets it do its thing. She's carrying it effortlessly. Happy to see it. Next up, we have Edebiri, and she is wearing Thom Browne. Now, this is from the most recent Haute Couture collection. And here's the thing. I don't love the dress. I'm going to be honest. I think that it's cool to see, like, the deconstruction element, and that's something that we really did see a lot of from that collection. It was based on toiles, which is essentially, like, the muslin fabric, and sort of is the thing that is created when it comes to fashion and haute couture specifically in order to then make the real garment. So the toile is kind of like the blueprint, and then the actual clothing is made based on the toile. So like that's why, this pleated skirt is all frayed at the bottom. That's why you're really just seeing like this light creamy white fabric, and that's it. There's no embellishment, there's no nothing. You can see all the boning of the corset. You can see all of the hooks that essentially would hook in this corset as well. I love the idea of it. I do think that an asymmetrical tiered pleated skirt just doesn't work, and maybe it's just the shoe doesn't support it. I think the dress is just not it. I do really like, and I never really talk about hair and things like that, but I do really like the fact that like the hair is big and it's bold. Normally I feel like everybody is slicked back. It's really simple, it's really clean. I do think that one of like the more beaded, embellished Thom Browne moments would have been much better here, because I think it would have really told a story. Whereas I just think that, again, like the silhouette of it, the idea of asymmetrical, one leg showing, the leg is fighting a real battle against what's going on the other side. But unfortunately, the leg is not winning. Also, the dress isn't really winning. So the attention is on how much fighting is going on, and nobody's becoming a clear victor. Next up, we have Brenda Song, who's wearing Zuhair Murad. And I just want to say that, like, I think she looks great. I haven't seen Brenda Song in a long time. If you don't know who Brenda Song is, she played London Tipton. She was a Disney Channel star. And so I just was happy to see her, because I don't really feel like I see much of her on the carpets. I think this dress is really nice. I normally don't like an asymmetrical neckline, but something about the gold is lovely. Something about the gathering is wonderful. It's just this continuation of pleated styles that run all throughout it. The little train scarf thing that comes out of the asymmetrical neckline is also lovely. Like, she just looks beautiful. I think the color really works with what's going on hair and makeup wise. And again, like, that's not really my jurisdiction, but I just do think that everything complements each other really nicely. I also think that this background in particular is rather fantastic, and we should keep this in mind going forward, because it just holds the color, I think, super duper well. And it's one of the first times that it feels like everybody's really looking good. Next we have Charles Melton, who's wearing Coach. This is just a simple double-breasted blazer suit, nothing really crazy going on, nothing really too exciting, but it's not awful, you know what I mean? Like, I do wish that as far as like a Coach look goes, maybe like some sort of bag or something, and I know that like he's a gentleman and da-da-da-da-da, but like, what I think would be interesting is incorporating some of the more interesting pocketed elements of Coach pieces of the past. I don't know, like a Bonnie Cashin, maybe like one of those interesting sort of snap wallets, the wallets that are like this, and they're like little coin purses, and they click open and then they open. You know what I mean? Like, that would be interesting. I think that something fun here could help, and I know that like the whole thing is, gentlemen of the Academy, but I think for Coach, make us feel like, oh, it's Coach. That would be nice. Speaking of, oh, it's something I know, Colman Domingo in Valentino by Alessandro Michele. Great. I love it. So the jacket itself, kind of simple, sure, but if we actually look up close, we can see it's not as simple as we thought. It's actually a black moire silk, which I feel like we haven't been seeing a lot of silk moire lately. So I'm happy to see it. And also at the same time, I love the fact that the jacket has a sort of belt that wraps around, which I feel like we would never think Luke would ever utter such words unless really under duress. But I like the fact that they come down, they have tassels at the bottom. It sort of has this like smoking jacket effect, but a little bit more intriguing, a little bit less velvet, a little bit more silky. Like, I think it's cool. I also love the red pants. I think that they work really well. I think that Alessandro Michele is most definitely back, and I feel like he's really honed in now at Valentino. And you don't have to like it, that's fair, but at the same time, for what it is, I enjoy it. I also love little intricate knot sort of style that's at the collar of the shirt. I think it's just lovely and fun and has that frilly sort of ornateness. Alessandro's work doesn't always feel super modern. It has a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of history. I love the shoes. I like the kitten clutch. I love the lace gloves, and I feel like normally I never love gloves, but something about Colman Domingo, which is really, really wonderful, and I'm excited for this upcoming Met Gala because he is one of the co-chairs, and I know that he's going to bring it, is that whatever the brand is, he allows the brand to embody itself. He's not afraid of clothing, and yet at the same time, it feels like the clothing never actually overtakes him. He's always wearing the clothes. They're never, having their way with him. He's having his way with them, and everybody's happy. So, myself included, looks great. Next up, we have Cooper Koch, who's like the new white boy of the month, as they would say. And I actually like the Saint Laurent look. It's not super exciting, sure, I agree. But I do think that the blue suit is fine on its own. But when it's paired with the silk burgundy shirt and silk burgundy tie, I think it's a lot better. I think that the color combination works really well. It seems rather intriguing to me. It's not radical by any means. I 100% am with you. But I do think that at least there's something of interest. You know, the silhouette isn't really crazy. It's just a nicely fitted suit on him. But at least we have some sort of color palette that's wonderful and works well together. And it's happening. You know, there's something going on while still being very sort of classic. I like the fact that the tie and the shirt are the exact same fabric, exact same color. I just think they allow themselves to blend in really well, but there's still depth and dimension there. The shoe, I don't love, but like, I can get over it because I'm not even really focusing on the shoe. I'm focusing on color. Next up, we have Cynthia Erivo, who's wearing Louis Vuitton. I really love the silhouette on her, and I also really love the fact that even though this is obviously like green, and we've been doing a lot of wicked press, I do think that Cynthia has yet to wear a look that makes me think, oh, I've seen that. Because I don't think I have. Every shade of green, she does a good job of differentiating it, whether it's the shade, whether it's fabric. She'll wear like a really deep green, it'll be leather, and the next one will be in a satin. Like, she makes sure that she sort of switches it up, and I think that this really almost like toothpastey mint green actually works really well. I think the silhouette is lovely. I actually like the way that it creates a more exaggerated skirt, but it's not too ball gowny. It's not too Glinda the Good Witch enough to make a statement, but it's not too much that one says, oy, what a statement. I do think the crystals also really work here. I like the fact that they're all over. There's no patches that make me say, oh, that's a good thing. It feels like we have a good crop of crystals here. The fields have been tilled. They have wonderful, things going on. There's no bad harvest happening. It's all good crystal work. I like it. I think it's happening. Next up, we have Davine Joy Randolph. This I love. I love the color on her. I love this dress cut on her. I love the silhouette. I think it's really beautiful. It's that like weird, wacky Louis Vuitton thing, but still feels evening gown, still feels red carpet, still feels like there's that respect for the person. I've seen this dress before on Davine. She wore a similar style at the actual show, and I had to like stop myself from being like, oh my god, I love you. Didn't want security to like do a hard body check. But I will say that this sort of like satin silk situation, the way that they sort of create these arched shapes reminds me of Godets. I don't know structurally if they actually are, but the fact that you do have this lighter, softer chiffon that sort of falls right underneath them. Normally, I don't know if I would love, but I love the fact that LV is trying to make sure that they actually dress Davine, who is not like a sample size, or at least like their standard sample size, in something that doesn't feel like it's a fitted dress, because I feel like that's usually what happens when you're not a sort of standard Hollywood or model size. So I like the fact that we're working to make sure that we're not just doing something we've seen a million times before. They have found the silhouette, and now they're working it. I will say, let's make sure that we keep trying to, switch it up. We don't want to go too heavy on it. 2 in a row is good. 3, too much. But I do love the differentiation of the off the shoulder. I do love the color swap. I think it's a really beautiful style. And also, when she's like walking and the train is following her, love it. It's beautiful. She looks like a princess. I'm very happy with it. Like, it's a great moment for her, and I want to see more. Next up, we have Dan Levy, who is wearing Tiger of Sweden. It's a brand I've heard of, but I don't really know much about it. And I also don't really often think or see it on the carpet. So I'm kind of into this. I love this double-breasted shape. It feels very 70s. It's a little bit like Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta moving and grooving. Do David. I love it. I think it's a great silhouette on him. I do wish that maybe the pants didn't pull as heavy on the floor as they do, but like, whatever, I'll deal with it. I think the white is great. I love the polka dot tie. I love the shirt. Like, he just looks comfortable. He looks cool. He stands out from the crowd. That's what you want, Next up, we have Daniel Deadweiler, who's wearing Ferragamo. Now, my problem is with this dress is that I think it's just the color, because I really love the dress. This is from, I believe, the fall 2024 collection. It's a great, really beautiful, like, fan or fish scale, like, paillette sequin, embellishment. And the issue is, it's almost like a piece of beautiful armor. Like, it looks like Daniel Deadweiler is wearing this lovely, lovely suit of black fish scaly armor. And I think it's the light. I really don't think it's her. I don't think it's the dress. I just think the way the light hits it, it doesn't show off the fact that it's these beautiful sequins. And so I just think it gets lost. And I don't know what exactly it is about the lighting or the dress color or even just the placement of the sequins that, like, it just doesn't land in the way that I think it should. But it's disappointing to me because I actually think it's a really fantastic dress. I saw it up close and personal. It's beautiful. It just has not gotten its due, but I respect her wearing it. I love the shoes. Like, I love Maximilian Davis's Ferragamo. I think he's fantastic. So it's just a shame to me that for whatever circumstance, it just doesn't visually hit in the way that I think that it should, because I would love to be ranting or raving about how fantastic it is. Next up, we have Danielle and Este Haim. Now, let's talk about these looks. They're both wearing custom Louis Vuitton, almost like really powdery blue crop top with a high-waisted skirt that I don't love. And I think the issue is I just don't really feel like the draping of it is as substantial as it could be. And I also think that the skirt and the croppedness of the top, it just doesn't lend itself to the same excitement, I would say, as the peachy version. And I also think that it was a shame that they're standing next to each other, because, like, now we have to a little bit compare and contrast because they're not the same look, but, like, they're very close. As for the other peachy look, I love the way that this is draped because it almost looks like it's draped right in front of the neck, and then the sleeves sort of like upturn and create like a collar of sorts. Like, it feels actually considered, whereas the other style is a little bit more abstract. And so you can really see the difference between the two in that regard. Like, one almost looks like it's a little bit eating her arm. The other one, it looks like it's symmetrical and it's sort of like rolled, and it's almost like a costume from Dune that was cut. It's cool. And then the fact that you have this actual full lighter peachy dress that fits her beautifully creates a lovely train effect. Like, it just is a really good dress. And then the other look, it unfortunately pales in powder blue in comparison. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I saw this Demi Moore dress, I did not like. I thought, so simple, so boring. And if you felt that way, I don't think you are alone. I actually like the color of it. The sequins are fine. From the front, like, it's nice. It's whatever. But the thing that's really interesting is when you look at the dress from the back, you can actually see that the straps, which look kind of weird in the front, like, it almost looks like they're not fitted to the body. It almost looks like they just mismanaged the fit of the strap situation. Well, you can see why, because at the back, you can see that there aren't any actual strap going all the way to the back. Like, they just stop. And so it creates this backless effect, which is actually really rather lovely. She looks fantastic. But I will say, a lot of the imagery from this particular event, I think we need to also start being a lot more considerate about not only putting out the celebrity from the front, but we also need to figure out, like, are they trying to do something? And if so, let's make sure that we're thinking about what we're trying to do here, which is she's trying to feature the back of the dress. So it's a little bit my fault, a little bit the fault of whoever's picking these images. But yeah, I like the idea. I like the concept. It's just, you had to dig a little deeper to find it. Next up, we have Drew Starkey, who's wearing Loewe. Now, this to me is like pretty Loewe-esque. The sleeves are really long, but they're meant to be really long, and I actually personally love Loewe. I think it's a great brand. I think Jonathan Anderson really is very good at what he does, and something about the length of the sleeves is something that I feel like we've seen time and time again on the runway, both the men's runway and the women's runway, and so I'm happy to see it. I like the pants as well. Something about this like high-waisted silhouette is something Jonathan Anderson has also been doing really early on. He did those like fisherman jeans that my body could never ever make look good. So the fact that somebody's able to make these high-waisted pants look right, I'm very happy. It's still baggy, it's still bold, it still feels a little bit too long, but it doesn't pool on the floor, which I also think is rather nice. I think the blue and the white really works. I think a different shoe. I like those rounded, dress shoes that he does, or rounded shoes in general, but maybe like a gray version, a white version, something that's not black would be kind of perfect. But besides that, I like this. If you don't like it, that's fine by me. I don't really, it's okay. Tell me how much you don't like it, but like, I like it. Nobody can change my mind. And I remind you, I don't do twinks. So like this isn't even like a Drew Starkey stan account. Like I like that suit. Next up we have Eddie Redmayne. I like. He's wearing Valentino. This is very fun. This is very cool. I think that this polka dot suit jacket is wonderful. Also, we can see that that sort of not intricate collar shirt thing is continuing. It's happening for Alessandro's men. We can also see that the pants, I believe, are high-waisted. I don't think that's a cummerbund. And if it is, okay, but I don't mind it. I like the high-waisted pants. I think they're cool. I like the fact that the pants are navy blue. It plays into, you know, the polka dot situation that we have going on with the shirt. I also love the fact that those shirts, actually, when we think about it now, thinking about this and Colman's look, you don't need a bow tie. Like this essentially creates like a faux bow tie, so you kind of save yourself money here if you buy this shirt. So just a thought. The shoes, again, they're okay. They don't really like stand out as super black compared to the navy blue on the pant. So that's also, I think, good in my opinion. But yeah, I really enjoy what Eddie Redmayne's been doing. I like this Valentino era. I think it's going to be good. Next up we have Elizabeth Banks, and I don't really want to have to explain why I think this is awful. It's just a bunch of panels of fabric sort of wrapped around the body, more or less. It's not actually wrapped, but like it could be. I do just think that the way that the panels fall off or sort of fit and they look like they're pulling at different parts, and it seems like a weird dress to say, sure, let's do it. And yeah, it just looks like it's falling apart, but I assume that it's not, and so I don't really get the vision. Next up we have Gabrielle Union. She's wearing Elie Saab. It's a pretty simple dress. It's a form-fitting style, and it is the hour for a very glassy hourglass figure because it's amazing. Like, the waist looks fantastic. I like this sort of rounded neckline that people have been doing. I think it's rather sweet. I think that the purple sequins that go all throughout it aren't like super in your face yet. Definitely does come through that the purple is there. I think she looks lovely. Next up we have Greta Lee. I love this dress. It's beautiful, it's cool, it's interesting, it's fun, it's artistic, it's memorable. It's what you want fashion to be. Listen, we have this beautiful silhouette. It's fitted, it's sleeveless, it hits the floor ever so effortlessly, but it's actually based on the most recent Loewe collection, the one that we just saw in Paris. And the thing is, Jonathan Anderson, who's the creative director of Loewe, the brilliant mind that that man has, he was creating these pieces that I kind of kept looking at as they were coming down the runway, and I was like, that's weird. Those look like feathers, but it's also a graphic t-shirt, and that's because the feathers that we are seeing here in this dress are printed on. We can see the flowers, we can see, I think maybe it's a couple different floral motifs because there's the black that I think is floral, there's the red and the green that's also floral, so I think there's a couple of moments here, but they're all printed on these tiers of feathers. And normally I wouldn't say like tiers of feathers work, but I do think that in this context, the way that the material, aka the feathers, flow, it's just abstract and weird enough, yet still beautiful. It still keeps that sort of glamorous feeling to it, I think, just based on, again, the silhouette, the sleevelessness, the fact that Greta Lee knows how to carry a garment. It's definitely something I will be keeping my eyes out for going forward. I think it'll be really interesting when it comes award season, what happens. So if you needed to know, now you know. Next up we have Jaden Smith, who is wearing Louis Vuitton. This is custom. It's a crystallized suit. I don't know. Listen, I like the shirt. I like the ruffle collar. I think that's fun. I think that's interesting. I don't know if I love the slash sleeve. Like, I don't mind a slash sleeve. I think that they're cool and they fit in with the very Nicolas Ghesquière sort of time travel feeling alongside the ruffle of the collar, which is what he does a lot, sort of pulls from different, you know, periods, whether it's the 80s, the 20s, the Renaissance, which actually was the most recent collection, I believe, was Renaissance inspired partially. So the idea of like a slash sleeve, I can see it, but I just think maybe the boot and the length of the pant is a little strange. I wish that they didn't taper so much and hit right at the boot. I wish that they fell over the boot. I also just think like the stance isn't really amazing. I think it feels a little Avatar, Sim-esque. There's just something about it that it just doesn't deliver. Next up we have Jessica Biel in Balmain, and like, there's just so much happening, yet there's so little happening, and that's a problem with a dress. On the one side, we have some sort of crystal cascade waterfall effect, and then it's an asymmetrical dress, so like one side is a strap, the other side is a really sharp shoulder. It's like trying to do so many things. It's also draped and ruched asymmetrically on the side, but you can't really see that because it's so dark. So like it's doing a lot. And I did say this and I meant this, like it's group project-esque. I'm gonna do this and I'll do this section and I'll do that part of the PowerPoint. What ends up happening is like nobody really talked for however many months they had to put this together. And it came together on the day and it looks like a shit show. And as a professor, not giving it a great grade because clearly we didn't work together in unison like we should. I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know the problems. If you want to talk to me on the side, send a little gossip my way, we'll listen. But I need evidence as to why this is as atrocious as it is. And yet, still, with all of that, there's still not really anything super memorable and or exciting that I could say, oh, well, this section at least looks good. Next up, we have Joey King wearing Carolina Herrera. I think this is lovely. I think the halter neckline is beautiful on her. And I also think the fact that the black really perfectly curves and allows the yellow to then do its job. There's just something about the way that that dip really functions. I do think that Wes Gordon, who's the creative director of Carolina, really does understand how to play on color and how to cut the body via color. And so I think this is, again, great example of it happening in action. I think that she's carrying the dress very, very well. I think people would be scared of this kind of vibrant yellow and satin, but she's not. It really fits her wonderfully. I just can't get over the way that it also just frames her torso, her shoulders, her bust, her face. It looks good. Next up, we have my hottest take of the night, which I actually don't think is even that hot because it makes a lot of sense when we talk about it in depth. Kim Kardashian wearing vintage Thierry Mugler looks like she is wearing a diaper. And it's weird. I understand that this is a Thierry Mugler Haute Couture Spring 1998 look. Sure, 100% get that. I do not think that just because you are wearing archival clothing that automatically means that you understand how to wear said archival clothing. Because some of the girls trying to drag me, and it's a little bit silly. Maybe it's the photos that they put out. Maybe it's because she doesn't really understand how to actually wear the garment properly. But the whole look, especially when you see it on the runway, is about focusing on the waist and how small one can get the waist. Because Thierry Mugler's work was often inspired by lingerie, the boudoir, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s noir films. And if you look at those kind of things, you'll see a lot of like boudoir lingerie sort of styles where somebody's wearing a beautiful sort of robe and silk and they're wearing, their sort of shapewear styles like we're seeing on the runway. But what's so crazy about seeing the piece on the runway is you can see where the corset clearly is about emphasizing a very small waist, a wasp waist, if you will. And something about the fact that the model doesn't have their hands on the wasp waist, but rather on the exaggerated hips, or at least just the hip bone area, to help emphasize the wasp waist. It's kind of all about how you place your arms. The other thing is the robe coat, which does have a hood, or at least is supposed to have a hood. If we look at the photos, we can see the shadow of the model's back as it sits on the robe. So in reality, what it does is it creates the fact that you can see the waist against this white robe coat. Kim covers her waist here with her hands, and then on top of it, the sleeves of the jacket, well, yes, on the model are long and on Kim are also long. And the sleeve, which is also white, when placed against the waist, does not help the viewer determine the fact that, oh, the waist is small because guess what? The sleeve blends in. It essentially eliminates the exaggeration of the hip area and rather bonds like the top of the ribs down to the hip because the white. The same thing with her other sleeve. Yeah, you can see it a little bit more if you zoom in on the sleeve that's upturned, which I assume that the sleeve isn't upturned because Kim wanted it to be upturned. I assume it was upturned because it was accidentally upturned. And so that's my real issue with the garment, is clearly it's just not being exhibited properly. And that's my problem, especially for somebody whose whole brand is like a small waist and a bigger bust and hip, and also like shapewear and, lingerie. Those are Kim's things. Skims, it's in the name. But I do just feel that without the actual understanding and the lighting that would help one to emphasize this waist, we're missing out on what could have been a cool look. So again, it's not that I think the original Thierry Mugler look is bad. I think it's far from bad. I think it's actually beautiful and a wonderful exploration of the brand's house codes. I just don't think that the person wearing the piece from 98 is actually able to exude the energy that one needs to, nor understands the emphasizing point of the garment. So that's my issue with this look is it could have been really good. It's just that the person wearing it in this instant chose to make sure that it didn't look good, in my personal opinion, because of all the aforementioned reasons, which is not my fault and does not mean that I have a lack of taste. My other issue is when Kim took off the coat, you can see that clearly the piece actually is doing what it needs to do, which is nipping in the waist and exaggerating that area. But again, like, just because on the carpet she didn't understand how to wear the sleeves and to not hold her waist, that doesn't mean it's my fault that I don't like it. I think that here, I don't know if these are edited or not, but I do think that this is showing off what we're trying to show off, and that's fine. But again, on the runway, we understood how to wear the robe coat. Here, this is not my fault. This is not my problem. Just that the images that we were seeing were not clearly emphasizing what needed to be emphasized. So, next up we have Kirsten Dunst. She's wearing Gucci. It's from the most recent Gucci collection. It's this brown sort of sheath dress with this cape asymmetrically falling down the side of it and gold sort of hardware connecting the two. From the front, it's blah. It's not really super exciting. But from the back, I do love the fact that the cape drapes really beautifully. I love the fact that it exposes the back. I don't even mind the line that sort of goes across and holds them together. I actually think that, again, it really does help. I think that the arm jewelry also works. Like, it looks really nice from the back, you know? I'll take it. All right, so next up we have Kylie Jenner. I'm being forced to talk poorly about Mugler things, although I'm gonna be honest, I don't necessarily love this look on the runway. I actually think that Kylie wore it better. So the piece is this sheer sequined and visibly seamed bodice that has a black fitted skirt that sort of comes up, has a little bit of a hip cutout, and then falls down. And I actually think Kylie fills out the dress really, really beautifully. If we look at it on the runway, it doesn't look like it fits as well, and so I'm happy that the alterations were done nicely, etc., etc. I think my issue is it's just the seamage, which isn't really Kylie's fault per se. I just think the seamage itself isn't really super great. I understand if it's necessary to the garment, fine, but at the same time, you don't have to love it just because it's necessary construction wise. I just think it takes you out of the fantasy of a sheer sequined bodice. As for the sequins, I think they're fine. I get it. I don't know. Maybe in person it was a lot shinier. On the photo, it doesn't really shine as well. You can just tell that it's sequins because clearly there are some sort of stripes of some material going across. She wore it better than the models, or at least it was fit better than the models originally. So, okay, fine. Next up, we have Laura Harrier, and she is wearing Ludovic de Saint-Sernin. It's this grommeted, laced-up dress. It's very much so, to me, in the camp, which is not a bad guy to reference, if you know what I mean. So it's this sort of empire-ish style, aka the bra is really, really short, and then it starts this wraparound, grommeted, but obviously it's held together also, I would say, by some sort of hardware. And then right at the thigh area, it starts to essentially unravel. It starts to spiral and fall down. And I think that not only the grommets are very Elia-esque, but also Azzedine Elia's very sort of clear, classic, iconic zipper style. I think it's really cool. I think it's a nice take on, iconic Elia pieces, but making it much more of your own. She looks beautiful. She's stunning anyway, so but it's a nice dress. I think it's cool. It works. Next up, we have Margaret Qualley, and she's wearing Chanel. I believe this is from not a Virginie collection. I think it's the in-house team, or it looks like something from the in-house team. I love the skirt. I love this crinoline, but it's not really crinoline. This sort of cage skirt. I love the embellishment. I love, love, love the pattern that runs all throughout at these sort of X's and boxes. It's trellis-esque. It seems like it's been, knit in this manner, or maybe it's a lace, but I don't think it's a lace. It could be. I don't know. But I do think it's really beautiful. It's really stiff looking. I think my only issue is the bodysuit spaghetti strap element. It just takes me out of the fantasy of the skirt. Maybe a jacket, maybe something a little bit more structured up top, a little less loosey-goosey. It's just beautiful skirt. It's starting to remind me a little bit of Dior, and that's making me nervous, you know? So I want to I do like certain elements. I just need a little bit more structure. Next up, we have Nicole Kidman. She's wearing Balenciaga. It's a bateau neckline, black silk dress. Has some sort of emphasis on the hip area. We can see there are these like sort of built-in little divots at the hip. It's fine, you know, like nice dress. Doesn't really rock my socks, but I also don't think it's awful. I think that the gloves look nice. It's okay. You know, not really too much to talk about. Next up, we have Quinta Brunson, and she is wearing Carolina Herrera. So here's the thing. On the runway, this look originally had a mini skirt. It didn't have a long skirt like this. This angle is better than another angle I saw, I will say. I can like get into it a little bit more here. I just think that like the top being peplum-esque and then having a long sheath kind of skirt flowing down from it can feel a little weird. I think, again, this angle does help. It's just, I don't know. Something about it wasn't speaking to me all that much. In this context, it's a little bit better. I don't know. I guess I'll allow it here. Next up, we have Regé Jean Page, and he is wearing Dunhill. Listen, silky top, silky cummerbund, black velvet, or at least a velvet jacket, pants that fit. Like, I'm okay. This is nice. He looks fine. It's not super boring. So next up, we have Renate. I don't know if I said that correctly. I apologize if I did not, but I do love this dress. This is a beautiful custom Louis Vuitton moment. The halter neck is beautiful. The color, it's this like metallic beige. The skirt is very tulip-esque. It really is just like a lovely piece of work. It's like a flower. She's a flower. They plucked her from the garden, but it's like a metallic flower. The shoes match. It's just great dress. I assume it has pockets, which makes it even better of a dress because her hands are somewhere and it looks like they're front. So I don't know, but lovely. Next up, we have Rooney Mara. She's wearing Givenchy. Now, this is by John Galliano. It's from the fall 1996 collection. Sarah Burton has yet to like design a collection at Givenchy, so I wonder if that's why we're seeing this John Galliano moment. But I am honestly really in love with it. It's so beautiful. Again, we're getting very sort of Regency period, Empire waistline, very Pride and Prejudice kind of vibes. I also think that Rooney Mara is like the Givenchy ambassador. She always looks fantastic. She's gone through all these different iterations of Givenchy creative directors and still is very, very, very into the brand, wears it well. I love this sheer little embroidered floral empire dress with little cap sleeve. Like, I know people were saying about like the briefs that she's wearing, it's not like a thong or whatever, but like here's the thing that I want to say. It's white, it's lacy, it's sort of like not puritanical, but like I don't know. In my head it's like puritanical, even though I feel like the Puritans are like, oh, lace. Too much. The devil's work. I think that for the options with a sheer dress like this, she chose the right option. You know what I mean? Just a white brief, not lacy, I don't think would have been the way to go. If it was going to scandalize the pilgrims, then I'm happy with it. Next up, we have Selena Gomez, and I thought she's wearing Louis Vuitton, but she's actually wearing Alaya. Love. Beautiful. Stunning. I don't know if there's a reference for this. I was trying to look to see if I could find one, and I couldn't find one that was rather immediate, but I've been really, really enjoying Selena's looks lately. They're really simple, and they've been very heavy on just like one color, one sort of design quality, but everything fits her well, everything feels exciting, everything feels nice. And so I'm trying to figure out if this is a velvet or a suede. I really still don't know, but this blue halter neck, and then on top of it, I think that the leather sort of bra is perfect. It's easy. It feels just a little bit hard against the softness of this silhouette and also of the actual material itself. There's just something here I think that works. They've nailed it. They're doing a great job. Really happy to see Selena being a fashiongirly.com. Love it. Next up, we have Sophia Richie, and she is wearing Fendi. Now, I do want to say, I did not know that she is a new mom, so I apologize for my previous bedsheet comments, even though I don't think it's a great dress, because I don't. But I also don't want to just be, like, tearing down people post having a baby. What I will say is I just think the dress itself, like, take Sophia out of the dress. I just don't think the dress is great. Kim Jones is no longer at Fendi, so I'm very excited for the new era of Fendi. I think it's going to make things a lot better. I think it's going to feel a lot softer and brighter, and hopefully I, won't have to look at so many awful things at once. We're just gonna let this slide. Again, just I think my issues with the dress are both sides are sleeveless, but one side needs like excess ruffle, the neckline, the color. It literally just looks like they sewed pieces of silk together and were like, okay, dress. And that's my issue. Is it's not Sophia Richie, it's the dress is bad. But congrats to Sophia Richie. I hope that she's enjoying her time as a mom. Next up, we move with Thurman, who's also wearing Fendi. What I will say is, this feels like a great dress. I love this sort of half moon top. I love the bateau cut on the half moon top. Like that little neckline is just, ooh. I think the color is luscious on her. I was saying it's very chocolatey. Somebody was saying it was plum though. I don't know. I think it looks brownish, but now that somebody says it looks plumish, I can see the plum. Either way, give her a Godiva ad or give her, I don't know what a plum brand is, but give her a plum brand ad. Either way, give it to her because the dress is great. I think she's wearing it well. I think that the little sort of drape at the waist is lovely. It's a perfect way to circumnavigate needing to have like a band of fabric or a very visible seam at the waist. I think that the dress falls lusciously. She just looks great. So everything I said about Kim Jones technically in this moment goes out of the window, but 1 out of like 45 hits, I think I'm okay. Next up, we have Winston Duke. He's wearing Etro and David Yurman. Love this man. Love this double-breasted suit. Love the embroidery of the florals on the lapel. Like, it's perfect. I love the coat over top. I love the wide leg pant. Like, he is unafraid. It's wonderful. It's super exciting. If Winston Duke is not already on the list for the Met Gala this year, I don't know what you're doing, but clearly you're not doing it right. Again, I also think that Etro currently is really cool. I think it's really fun. I feel like they've really, really stepped up the game, and it's something that I think everybody can find a pattern, a print, a color that they enjoy. So really into this. This is beautiful. Thank you. Next up, we have Zoe Saldana wearing Harris Reed. It's custom. Here's my issue with this dress is you're never going to drape in that region this way and not make me think of a prolapsed vagine. If you were to put it on the backside, I would think it was a prolapsed asshole. So it's an equal opportunity prolapsing. So it just feels weird. It feels saggy. It swings low. Sweet Chariot. It just is not a great vibe. And I think there's a lot about Harris Reed that is really, really great. I just don't think that this draping technique really delivers. It could use a little bit of filler. It could use a nip, a tuck. Pull it back a little bit, please. Other than that, like, the lace is fine with me. I like the corset. I like the black. It's fine. It's a weird dress. And as for Zoe Saldana, like, most of the time, I don't get it. I don't know what's happening. I'm not understanding. That is the end of the video. It was a long one. Let's talk about best and worst. Best, I'm going to put Kaya Gerber. I'm going to put Selena Gomez. I'm going to put Renate Reinsve. I'm going to put Winston Duke. I'm going to put Colman Domingo. I'm going to put Dave Wayne Joy Randolph. I'm going to put Greta Lee. Loved. Oh, Ava DuVernay. That was delicious. Beautiful. Laura Harrier. Perfect. I could throw Uma in there. Maybe a little Rooney Mara. As for worst, I'm going to put Zoe. I'm going to put Kim, because she just didn't know how to sell the garment to me. I'm going to put Aubrey Plaza, Anna Sawai, Elizabeth Banks, Jessica Biel. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, and TTYL.